Hey, I want to welcome you to the Seven Figure Real Estate Show. Today, we're talking with Dave Marsden, and he brings us from the start of his real estate career all the way to the end. But we can actually pinpoint where his real estate career took off.
It's not over yet, baby.
So I want you to stick around to the end. You'll get some great information, tips, tricks, and things to do to take your real estate to the next level. Thanks so much for joining us. And David, thanks for coming.
Pleasure, Nick.
We started working together in 2008, and I've learned so much from this gentleman. I've actually remember the day that he taught me about DocuSign, which I can't. I use it every day, and I think about the time that Dave was like, "What are you doing? Why don't you just use DocuSign?" So, Dave is, whether he knows this or not, is truly a mentor to me. Somebody that I watch, I follow, I want to emulate. Does an amazing business here in the city of Portland. And does it uniquely. He really adds his own personal touch and twist to his real estate style. So I'm really excited about kind of sharing his story and how he does it and really how he got started. Dave, I know about in your life just through talking is that you used to windsurf competitively, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So, you were kind of like, you started in the real estate, restaurant scene, is that right?
Yeah. So first, thank you, Nick. I mean, right back at you. I love collaborating and watching you, and the way you walk through your business and navigate everything. It's great, and I'm certainly not a technology guy, but I was like, hey man, if I don't have to run across town and I can get a signature and it's legit, I'm in. I got to learn this thing. So I'm adaptable.
Yeah.
And so yes, and thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I worked in the restaurant business really as a way to work nights, have my days free. I love to ski, grew up by the ocean, passionate about being in and around the ocean. Windsurfing was the vehicle for me. I mean, literally, I've been over 40 years, I've been a windsurfer, and I graduated from college and bought a one-way ticket to Maui and thought I was going to be a professional windsurfer because that's where all the R&D was coming from in the industry and all my heroes. So I land there, kid from Maine. What did I know? White kid in Hawaii. I'm a true haole. And it was a really a transformative experience for me to understand the indigenous people of Hawaii and how the missionaries came there, and just like the Native Americans, we took their land, we forced our way on them, and for that, the color of my skin and what I represented, I was a minority and I was harassed.
Wow.
And it was reverse racism, from coming from New England. I just didn't understand that. So it was a life lesson, and I was alone 6,000 miles away from my comfort zone. And thank goodness I had that experience. And here I am in Hawaii, and I learned the other hard lessons, like the waves are big, the ocean's moving, and there's reefs, you can get cut. And frankly, I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And I had to work. So again, I told them I had a day job, and I worked in the Sizzler restaurant in Kahului.
Nice.
And great group of people. And so I would literally windsurf until like 4:30, shower outside at the local park, kept my, little restaurant closed in the car, trunk of my car, and I'd go to work and then do it all over again. And it was good. I was there a year and a half, learned a lot, came back, and we had been racing windsurfers, through the early and mid 80s, and then would put on regattas here in Back Cove, East End Beach, and traveled throughout New England and raced competitively for a number of years after that. But it was those formative years, and windsurfing is still a part of my life. I'm going up to Canada Labor Day and there for 2 weeks, and I'm learning to foil now. So that's my new obsession. It's basically windsurfing on steroids, and it's awesome.
That's great.
Winging, kiting, foiling. Yeah. So the learning curve was steep.
That's great.
Anyway.
So you came back to Maine and then started working in the restaurant business here, but then got your license?
Yeah. So I bought my first home in 89, spring of 90, and I was just blown away by the process of, if they're naive enough to loan me money, I'm naive enough to sign whatever document they put in front of me. So I'm like, all right, well, what's the worst can happen? You know, they take the house back and I walk away. So in that, I learned a lot. I became curious, took a licensing course, and then was fully licensed in 93.
Okay.
All the while working in the real estate.
And 93 was not a great year.
No, it was an awful year.
Yeah.
So the late 80s, economic downturn, the banking crisis. I mean, Portland and the nation was in economic turmoil.
Right.
So a lot of foreclosures. We were chatting before we went live here, and down on Commercial Street, TD Bank, it was actually People's Heritage Bank, had a foreclosure office. And I would go in there and like, these iconic buildings in Portland up for sale.
Yeah.
100 grand, 75 grand, all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I wish I had some money, but how am I going to do this? So anyway.
I was down at Chandler's Wharf showing a place down there. And it was on the market for, I don't know, $650,000, $700,000. And I was telling my client, I was like, you believe it or not, these places were selling for $40,000 at auction.
35 and 40 grand. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. Different time.
Different time. So, and Portland was a different city.
Oh, very different.
Gritty.
Yeah.
A third of Commercial Street was still boarded up. It was a good time to be here, but, simple time.
Yeah. Still a fisherman community.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And you'd go into Jay's and there'd be a fisherman, an attorney, and you, and nobody knew who did what, and it didn't matter. So that was, in my opinion, that was what drew me to Portland, close to the ocean, close to the mountains. I could have a life that I enjoyed, and that's still bringing people to Portland.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I no longer live downtown. I live over by Deering, and, I can be in the water quickly.
That's right.
So... yeah, and the ocean and the mountains have always been my thing, and I roll it forward. So I went to work. So I got my license, but never activated it. Went to work, and we opened the brew pub for Shipyard, Fred Forsley down in Kennebunk. I was a summer kid in Kennebunk, worked through high school and college down there. So I was like, I'll do it for a little while. And that rolled into 3.5 years of my life, and restaurant business will eat you alive.
Yeah.
It's a tough business. Morning, noon, and night you're on. High turnover, high stress, thinking on your feet, problems, and it became too much. I was married at the time. I wasn't home a lot, and the lifestyle just wasn't conducive to being a family.
I found that because obviously that was my background as well, restaurant business first. But what I also found about it, it was very hard to leave that money.
Yeah.
Because at 19, 20, 21, you're making 50, 60, 70 grand, and 50, 60, 70% of it's in cash.
Yeah.
And you're walking around with $1,000 in your pocket and you're living high. But what you don't realize is long term, that's just not a lot of money.
Yeah.
But right then it's a ton of money, and it's really hard to leave it because you go backwards. Like when you get into the real estate business, you leave this restaurant business and you go backwards to making nothing.
Awesome point. I mean, the first year in real estate, I worked every day for 6 months and didn't make a dime.
Right.
And finally, I had a closing. And at the end of my first year, I closed 19 deals. I was the rookie of the year.
That's awesome.
Probably made, 75, 80 grand. And I was like, well, now I got to pay taxes. So there's 35% off the top. I got to pay all my other expenses. I mean, when you look at the net, I'm like, how do people make a living in this business?
Right.
So it's, everyone sees the big dollar at closing, but then what they don't see is the costs of doing business and the fact that we are an independent contractor and we work for ourselves. And as a self-employed person, knock off 35, 40% of every dollar.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a good experience, and I feel blessed to build on that momentum, and I'm a worker.
Right.
I've always been a worker. I never had a 9-to-5 job, so I'm like, this suits me.
Yeah.
I'm good.
So how did you go from rookie of the year? What was the, okay, geez, I did awesome. Didn't net a lot of money, but what was your big breakthrough? Was it, what was the sauce that you're like, okay, here I've arrived. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I didn't think I arrived until years later, because every day I was like, shit, I got to hustle. I got to make some money. I got to be out there and I got to work because you don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. And I had a family to support. So I was motivated to get out and learn, be curious, educate yourself on the broad aspects of the market, not just your local market, but the national market as well. So you can understand trends, see what technology is out there and how it can help you and leverage that in your business, but also, network with some colleagues. I first year, I went to the National Association of Realtor convention in Orlando. Nobody in my office went. I didn't know. I'm like, I know what trade shows are about, so I'll spend some money. I was in Orlando. It was pretty cheap. Stayed at some flea bag hotel for $30. Walked to the convention center. Was too cheap to buy the full access pass. So I just had the trade show pass. And there was John Hatcher.
Oh, nice.
And we kept running into each other randomly at different, booths of, products and service providers. And finally I was like, hey, John. He's like, oh yeah, hey, I know who you are. And, hey, Dave. I'm like, you want to have lunch? And, can I buy you a drink? And, to this day, I have a great friendship.
Yeah.
And I look at him as a mentor and just a colleague that I can be open and share ideas. He was so gracious with his time and just thoughts about the business and things. So I feel very blessed. So it's people like that, people like you that I'm curious, like, how are you doing it? We're all doing a similar business, but we do it slightly differently.
Correct.
And to me, that's cool. There's no one way to do the business. And at the end of the day, it's who do you trust? Who's going to have your back? And do you have your clients back? Come hell or high water, because sometimes stuff gets ugly and you got to step up and do the right thing.
Right. Totally.
And, those choices can be career makers or breakers for you, because at the end of the day, it's just your reputation, your integrity. So if you say you're going to do something, you better deliver.
Hey, listeners, and shout out to you if you're watching this on YouTube. Whatever you're doing right now, maybe you're folding laundry, maybe you're in a car ride, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're just listening to this to pass some time. We ask that you guys can help us grow this podcast. And the only way this grows is through your help. And that means sharing, commenting, liking. Now, we're putting a ton of work into this episode with cameras and lights and action and bringing on good guests. So any type of engagement you guys give us can help us make this bigger and bigger. Again, we thank you guys so much for all of your support, and we look forward to growing this thing.
Right. And I've talked about this before, which is, what's the lifetime value of a client? The lifetime value of a client is probably, if the average is every 7 years, or let's say, the average person owns 4 or 5 homes, and you do a good job for that person, that's a potentially $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, earning on that one person. And if you do it bad the first time, you've just lost out. Yeah. And you've probably lost other people, because they're, as we all know, people don't, they don't sing the praises enough, but they definitely sing your faults a lot.
It's in advertising. I mean, what's the statistic? You'll tell 8 people about a bad experience and maybe 1 about a good experience, something to that effect. But and I'm sort of, to my own fault, I don't shout my praises from the rooftops. I don't brag about my numbers. I'm kind of behind the scenes, under the radar. I'd rather have my work represent my reputation. And I don't know, it's just, maybe it's a New England thing. It's like, hey, be humble, do the work, let the results speak for themselves. So thanks for inviting me here, because my social media needs work, all that stuff. I mean, I look at some of the younger agents, they're killing it, but they're putting themselves out there. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't care what you had for dinner.
Right.
Yeah, I went to a Thompson's Point show 6 times this season. Did I post about it every time? No. But you know what? Good for them that they're putting themselves out there. They're sharing the lifestyle. I don't necessarily want people to know where I am at every moment of the day.
It's hard. It's I would say it's definitely a New England thing.
Yeah.
Also
I'm a Yankee.
Also generational as well. But
totally. I'm an old man.
Yeah. Yeah. I say the same thing. I was like, but it's it's definitely a space that you all need to be in, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
definitely, I'm doing this because I know that if I don't start doing more video, I'm going to become irrelevant.
Yes. Yes.
And
it's cool. But I have a hard time bragging about what I do. I need to get better at it. I just, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to get better at it. And so
tell me about your biggest win in real estate in the, I don't know how long you said how long you been doing this now?
Licensed in 03 for the second time, 93, but I never was active. And then 03.
Okay. So you're 21 years back in.
Yep.
And in that 20-year span, I'm sure you've had some huge wins. Tell us about a fun win, a great story.
So my first big win, I was taking buyers to a condo project in the West End, and I met a guy named Jonathan Cully.
Yeah,
he's a Redfern Properties developer, and he and his wife had just moved back from Seattle. They grew up in Falmouth, just had their first child. Jonathan bought a 12 unit in the West End on Neal Street and was doing a renovation. And I took a couple buyers there because I was like, hey, this is a good value. This guy's, there's laundry, new kitchens, new baths, really thoughtful renovation and a fair price. So one day the listing broker wasn't there and Jonathan shows up to make sure we were there. So I met him. Oh, wow, thanks. I'm a big fan of your work, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, the third floor have attic rights. And we were looking at a third floor unit. I'm like, well, what's that mean? So he's like, well, you could expand into the attic if you wanted to. So I'm like, great. You got a ladder?
Yeah.
So we found a ladder. We went up through a scuttle. It's all nasty and vermiculite up there. And so I'm like, whoa, this is cool. This is great. We're climbing around. I mean, I didn't think of the liability at the time for my client, but there we were. And I just thought it was the neatest thing that this guy, sort of showed us the around. So roll it forward, unbeknownst to me, the listing broker was going back to architectural school. And they were looking for someone to take over the project. So it was about halfway through. And Jonathan said, hey, what about that guy Marsden? We worked for the same company, but we were in different offices. I was at Caldwell Banker at the time. And I took over the listing. I wasn't really paid on, I think I sold 6 of the 12 units, but we had an arrangement with the previous broker. And I learned a lot. I built credibility with the Jonathan and Catherine and the team, and it just went from there. So that was a huge breakthrough for me, just learning about condominium conversions, new construction, development, all of that. And we did it, on a shoestring. It was just us.
That's
like
great.
He would literally drive to IKEA in his pickup, get a kitchen, we'd install it, they'd drive back and get another one.
Wow.
So we were just doing it.
Yeah.
And that
so you're actually
was
helping.
cool.
You were actually helping put.
I didn't, I didn't swing a hammer, but I was like, could we tweak the kitchen like here?
Okay,
And
understand.
He knew, they had already done a few, so they had a good baseline, and then it evolved. So he rolled that into another project on Lewis Street. We did a 7-unit on Lewis Street. Then we
I've sold one of those.
Yeah, those are great units. I looked at it with another client about 2 months before they bought it. And the basement was so flooded, there was a canoe floating around it. I'm like, shit, man, we're out of here. But Jonathan, he's like, no big deal.
No big
we'll
deal. Let's
figure
do
it out.
Yeah.
So he did it. And again, got renovation. We sold those units. Then we did a project down on Pleasant Street.
I looked at that building with my father, and I was like, Dad, you need to buy this. We'll condoize it. And we got scared. And then you killed it on that project.
Yeah. We bought it from J.B. Brown, Vin Verno, and Vin wanted to do condos there. And I was like, I think I got the guy. So I introduced the two of them. Jonathan bought it. We did it. And that was right when the market shifted in 08.
Yes.
So we closed it, and we were like, whew, good thing we got out of that one. Meanwhile, Catherine and Jonathan were building sort of custom single-family homes around for a few select clients. In the tail end of 08, Jonathan bought a piece of land over by Payson's Park. I think he paid like $120,000 for the land. This is in a neighborhood of maybe $250,000 homes. And then we did the first platinum LEED certified home in Portland. during the downturn post '08.
Yeah.
I mean, gutsy move, right?
Yeah.
So he built this custom home, no fossil fuels in it, passive and active solar. And I'm like, you're crazy, man. What are you doing? He's like, well, I'll never get my money out of the land.
Yeah.
So we got to do something.
Yeah.
So we sold that home probably $4.25, $420. And I think it was barely a break even.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot. We had Revision Energy put in systems. He had an architect design the passive solar, big big slab to absorb the sun's rays. So we all learned a lot on that project, and that kept rolling forward. And it again, just snowballed from there. So long story short, meeting Jonathan and Catherine Cully early in my career was a game changer for me, and we built a good rapport.
I want to boil that down because yes, it was meeting them, but in hearing that story, what was the differentiator is you had no idea, A, that they were looking for somebody else.
No.
Right? So it's whomever you never know whom you're going to bump into.
Correct.
Right? So you're always on your A game. But you showed excitement in the property. You were like, you went the extra step. Let's get a ladder. Let's check this out. I mean, it was those actions that showed this gentleman like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time. I was just genuinely curious.
Right.
I'm like, wow, I want to go in the attic. This sounds interesting.
Right.
And with that approach, I think you will be successful in the long run in this business. And think differently, go the extra mile, get up early on a Sunday and do 2 open houses because you never know, you might meet someone in the neighborhood that's thinking about buying or selling their home.
Right.
And be real, be honest, and just be straight with people.
Yeah.
At some point in that cycle, they may be ready.
Right.
But we're not here to sell them a home or help them buy a home today. We're here to create that relationship. And, where are you in your life?
Right.
Families grow, families shrink, jobs change. And these are big life decisions. And if you listen and try to help support them towards their goals, you're going to be successful.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for watching the show today. If you ever want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in the greater Portland area, please reach out to us here at Danbury Guerin Real Estate Advisors. Our phone number, 207-553-2400, or you can always email us at team@danburyguerin.com.
The 7-Figure Real Estate Podcast and the CE Shop have partnered to provide you guys with awesome real estate licensing education. So wherever you are in the US, if you are looking to get your real estate license, make sure to check out the CE Shop and you can start your real estate journey today. We have links in all of our descriptions. So if you're interested, make sure to scroll down, click the link, and get started.
That's such a great point, and it's everybody, to be successful in this business, everybody's like, oh, you got to be a differentiator. Differentiate yourself. How do you do that? How do you do that? And what's really crazy is in this business, you show up on time.
Simple.
You show up on time. You wake up before 8 and get to the office and start working. Because so many people don't do that. And then they just wonder like, well, what happened? But it's also, you have to be a self-starter.
Yeah. Because
you don't have a boss saying you're in the office from 8 to 5. You're making phone calls from this time to this time. So you really have to, I know that you really, your first story was, you fell into National Association of Realtors, but I also know that you coach too. And you find a coach that somebody, and that person's helping you saying, you need to lead gen from this time to this time, or you need to, you should be looking at this or looking at this. And I look at, another person that I hold in high regard is David Banks. And
yes.
My office was right next door to this gentleman for 15 years. And he was like the first person to say, you know what, I'm going to focus on developers. I'm going to really, I'm going to make relationships with those people. I'm going to knock it out. It was very similar to you, and
his was more planned. Mine was more spontaneous.
But, his first big project was Rockwood.
Yeah.
Right. And then did that and did a great job. And then, kind of like spun it off. And I couldn't believe when I learned that he was like the financier behind the model house. I was like, well, that's different.
Yeah. No, I remember that. He built and staged the model home. And I thought that's brilliant because A, he's got something to show, and B, it's now got the developer a platform, for future sales. Now,
and you're tied.
Yeah. Yes.
It's very hard to break up that relationship.
And that model he used on other developments.
Still does.
Yeah. So it's funny. I didn't have the financial capacity to float that. And but staging, I sort of look at that, and stagers are a great, important element of our business. But depending on who you use, their schedule may not marry with yours.
Mm-hmm.
Their style may not marry with the property. Mm-hmm. And over time, I've said, because I'm such a sort of bullheaded Yankee, I'm like, damn it, it's going to be $4,000 to stage this thing. I'm going to I got stuff, and I'll find other stuff. So anyway, I have a storage unit full of staging.
That's
Yesterday,
awesome. I
was staging a home for a client, and that's sort of a value add that we can do. And some of the big condo projects, I learned this early from Jonathan and Catherine, they were staging the units. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, this makes sense. You got to do this. So
that's a great idea.
Larger projects that I've been involved with, I've just bought stuff, and we continually rotate it and use it for staging. And anyway, it's just an element. I couldn't buy the home from the contractor developer and then stage it, but I'm an element of that. You brought up David and what he was able to do, and this is your business. You've got to invest in your business. So yes, I've invested in a coach. I've been part of the Tom Ferry ecosystem for years. So I invest in my business. That's an example. The staging, I invest in our business. Mm-hmm. It may sit idle for 3 months, but in the right circumstance, it's a huge value add for your client, and it can help sell their property faster and for more money.
Right.
Proven results.
Yeah.
So,
and ultimately, it's your fiduciary responsibility to take care of that person and make sure that they get the most amount of money in the time frame that they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not rocket science.
I mean, God, you can go out, spend, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in furniture that you sit on and then you just reuse. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's genius.
And again, I'm a Yankee, and I have a great relationship over the years. Angela Adams and Sherwood Hamill, they're old friends, and I have bought a lot of their products, and we use that. I like a clean, modern style. But oftentimes, clients, when they're moving, they're unloading furniture.
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where I'm very selective of what I pick up, because I just have too much.
Right.
And I'll bet there's a lot of things around your home that you might be able to pull out for a month or so.
Right.
As long as your partner's okay with it.
I don't know. I don't know if Hadley would get. Yeah. Hadley very, very particular about, no, I don't.
Honor comes home. She's like, where is that table? I'm like, don't worry. Just a couple of weeks. We're just shooting it next week. We're good. 2 days. I need it. I want that back. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And the other thing is, so now I can justify owning a small van, and secretly the van is my escape route.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get in the van. I'm going to Mexico. All my gear's in it, or my skis. I'm like, one seat in the van, Honor. No dogs in the van, Honor. She's like, yeah, good luck with that. But I'm embarrassed. I wanted a little hippie van, like a Volkswagen bus.
Yeah,
but I'm not a mechanic, so to get a sweet restored Volkswagen bus, it's like $75 to $100,000, and I'm like, shit.
You can find a Westphalia, and if you get a Westphalia with the Subaru engine fits in the back.
No, that I would have to have that. No,
because it's like
I went down a rabbit hole on this.
Yeah.
So, but long story short, also on the Westphalias, a lot of kitchen stuff. I'm like, where's all my gear gonna go? So I bought a little Mercedes Metris. It's their passenger van, stripped out all the seats, and I can throw all my gear in there.
That's
I can
awesome.
Sleep in there if I have to. So yeah, we're good. But honestly, I use it for staging.
I love it. Well, it's a write-off.
Yeah, it's exactly.
It's a business-owned vehicle.
Owned vehicle.
You got to take advantage of all of those features of being a independent contractor, because you can, it's legal, it's honest, it's just, it's the way that you run your business. Yeah. So So you differentiate yourself by, offering staging. You have staging things. What else would you say that David does differently than other brokers?
I don't know if I do it differently, but I hope I'm compassionate and I'm a human being first.
Mm-hmm.
So ask a ton of questions. Get to the root of the client's needs, whether it's a buyer or seller. Yesterday, I met with a client, potential client. We haven't signed anything yet. So they're like, hey, we want to, it's time to upgrade. We're going to sell our place and buy another place. We've got X amount of equity. So all questions are on the table. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you have very little debt on this.
Mm-hmm.
You have a loan at approximately 3.5%.
Mm-hmm.
I bet if we rented it, we could get this.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we leverage that? You keep it in your portfolio and, you put a small down payment on the next place. You can manage that payment and you can offset that payment by roughly $1,500
Mm-hmm.
From your rental income, your profit that you would make on your current place. So I basically was talking myself out of a listing.
Yeah.
And I said that to them. I'm like, I must be stupid because I'm basically talking you out of listing your home. But to me, and we can do a 3-year experiment because if it's their primary home for the last 5 years. So it's not a forever trial.
Right.
But why not use the leverage,
Mm-hmm.
try it for a while. Oh, I don't want to be a landlord. This is a condominium. It's 3 years old. There's not a lot of management here.
Right.
So, and we can factor in a property manager if you
Right.
want.
Yeah.
So the numbers still work.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see what they decide.
You'll get it. I do the same thing. And I've won so many listings because I'm like, why sell an asset if you don't have to?
Right.
That's how people get really, really, really rich.
I mean, Winter Street, I've borrowed against that building numerous times to get where I need to be.
Right.
And now I own it outright and,
right.
it's still serving me well. So I joke, I'm like, my daughter, that's yours, kid.
Yeah.
If something happens to you today, it's all you.
It's a great way to pass wealth too, because she's going to get the step up basis.
Correct. Whatever it's worth today.
So she can step it up and then sell it tomorrow and make
and
no
she
taxes.
would sell it tomorrow. So great question. So it is a way to pass on wealth to your heirs
It's the best way.
without the tax implication. Yeah.
It is the
it's
absolute
brilliant.
best way.
Brilliant.
It's when you, upon death, you give it to your kids and then they step it up, they could sell it tomorrow and pay no taxes.
No taxes. They get all that gain and
Well, if you go along the same route, so David says, oh, geez, I'm going to sell it tomorrow and then give my daughter the money. He's got to pay the taxes on that money.
yeah.
So
I'd
it's
actually
20,
give her less.
Yeah, 30% less than if you just gave her the building.
And I think, I don't know what the IRS rules are right now, but if I give her more than like $10,000 or $12,000 a year, she then has to report that as income.
Correct.
So it's a losing proposition the way it is. So a lot of wealthy landowners or real estate owners, that's their way of sort of passing on the legacy.
Right.
And it's brilliant. Again, I didn't make this up. I'm just curious, like, how do they avoid taxes?
Right.
You just got to go and ask the question and figure it out. Like I look back, we were building back to Redfern for a minute, Jonathan and Catherine Cully. So we're building this LEED certified home, 2008. The market's sort of down. I'm like, what? You're going to no fossil fuels? So that year, NAR, National Association of Realtors, was offering the first green designation. This is 2008. So I went to their annual conference again that year, 3 days early, did a 3-day class, their initial thing, and learned all about, got my certification, because I'm like, I got to learn about stuff. I'm curious. We're going to do this. I want to know. Now we have a green sort of board at the Portland Board of Real Estate. They have a green committee, and the last 2 years they've hosted a little symposium, a 1-day thing where they bring in speakers and Efficiency Maine and things. So it's cool, but what is it, 2023? That was 2008.
Yeah.
So again, I'm a green designee from the National Association of Realtors. No, I don't. You don't see that on my signature line. I'm a certified buyer's agent. I'm a CRS. What does all that stuff mean?
Right.
I don't know. But
what you're doing is you're adding knowledge to yourself to be able to provide it to your client.
correct.
And that's where the value comes in.
You have to. If you're a professor, you go and get a graduate degree. You go and continuously learn and get better and sharpen your skills. Otherwise, you're not going to get better. So
Right.
every day you got to get better.
So in the greater Portland area, where do you see opportunities for people to add investments to their portfolio, sell investments in their portfolio? Where is the next area of the city of Portland or greater Portland that you see opportunity?
Great question. And, looking back pre-COVID, just, 2019, I was thinking that we may have peaked in our market with the low rates, building pricing. I was just like, because in 2008 we saw the downturn and people were over leveraged. That hasn't happened now. Banks are risk adverse, so they're not lending to people at high risk. Clearly, I was wrong. We weren't at the peak. And now I'm seeing a new growth and resurgence in the city that I've never experienced. I've been in Portland since the mid-'80s, and I don't see a top end yet.
Yeah.
So I think the next 10 years will be fascinating. And I think Biddeford is also huge growth potential. There's big developments down there. We're doing one with Port Properties. Jim Brady, the Canopy Hotel, the Press Hotel, has a big project down there. The Lincoln Hotel, if you've been down there, Tim Harrington, the Kennebunk developer, was a partner on that, and he and some other partners have a third development happening down there. So I think Biddeford will have legs and traction like we haven't quite yet seen. There's always pockets of Portland. I have to check myself because the lens of my financial sort of history was based starting in the 80s. And there is new money coming to this area that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And there is wealth around the globe that recognizes the quality of life. I moved to Portland because it was close to the ocean and close to the mountains, and I could have my lifestyle.
And that hasn't changed.
No. In fact, it's gotten better.
Yeah.
So, I launched at East End Beach, last week on my foil board. I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? They were sitting right next to the sewer outlet. I'm like, do you realize, I'm like, okay, they're sunbathing out there. And I'm like, wow, life has changed.
Your life is different.
There was an abandoned pool down there when we were there. We used to skateboard in the baby pool. It was all overgrown and nasty, broken bottles everywhere.
That's where we went for high school keg parties. We went down there because nobody was down there.
Exactly. We'd sit down by the water and they'd shoot the fireworks over our heads and we'd be like, wow, drinking beer all night. Now you can't even get down to the water.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right, cool. I'm still down here doing my thing.
That's right.
It's just more boats to avoid in the water.
I find that there are pockets even further north still.
Yes.
I think Brunswick's come a long way, but I think it's got a long way to go.
Yes.
I'm really up on because
Lewiston Auburn region. I don't think that has the traction Biddeford has.
No, but it will.
Yeah.
Because rents are very similar to Portland now up there, which is going to allow developers and property owners to improve their properties.
Waterville has been a game changer downtown.
Yes.
Colby's had a huge investment in downtown and many other businesses as well. The new hotel up there. So it's curious. During the pandemic, even Aroostook County was seeing, an increase in median price.
Right.
So, Sugarloaf. Look at Sugarloaf. Look at Rangeley and Saddleback region. It's always been Rangeley's been a 4-season resort from the get-go. Sugarloaf has had some challenges over the years, but you think of the West Mountain development happening at Sugarloaf right now.
$1 million for a piece of land.
Yeah. So my buddy who lives at the top of the road paid $28,000 for his piece of land when West Mountain was basically in foreclosure. Kind of like your
Chandler's Wharf.
Chandler's Wharf story. Yeah. And I'm just scratching my head going, what? So there is money coming to there, and families are committing to being part of that community. And it's a great community.
It's awesome.
The mountain's incredible. CVA, with the expansion, it's going to add all that intermediate terrain and the new lift. And,
and I think next year they're going to be mountain biking.
Oh,
I mean, they're now, but you have to pedal up. But there's going to be chairlift service, I think, next year.
I think you're right. And that whole game change, I went up there to meet a client. We actually played golf, old guy. And I was like, wow, the rack Wednesday night packed.
Yeah.
Like it was mid-season. I was like, wow, I'm going to the rack. And, so it was fun.
It's
really fun.
Places open and they're doing lift rides. I mean, because I've started going there, as a kid, we were always day skiers because we didn't have the money to go spend the night anywhere. So we would go up to Sunday River and back. And that was like my mountain. And, I went skiing 30, 40 times at Sunday River. And then, I'm older and I'm like, well, I'm going to go check out Sugarloaf. And now it's like, this place is amazing.
Yeah. The terrain, I'm biased.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I went to Orono and I landed in UMaine as a backup plan. I wanted to go to UVM, Vermont, and ski my way through college.
Yeah.
So I went to Orono as a backup plan, taught skiing my first year in there, winter of 82, 83. And I just fell in love.
Yeah.
I became the manager of the outing club cabin. Mm-hmm. So I had a free place to stay. So all 4 years, I was there literally every weekend and every spring break.
That's awesome.
Skied my brains out. And I was always a guy like sleeping on the floor, or the cabin didn't have any heat or running water or anything. So we were just, living hand to mouth. And we would stay with friends over the years who had a mountainside condo. And probably about 5 or 7 years ago, they decided to sell it. I was like, you can't sell this. Where am I going to go?
Where am I staying?
I was in the bunk room. And so we bought it. And again, going back, it doesn't make financial sense, but it's sort of a lifestyle decision. And I felt very awkward. Like they have a primary bedroom on the top floor, en suite bath. And I was like, I can't sleep in that room.
Yeah.
I'm in the bunk room.
Yeah.
And that's still where I feel most common. And, it's that ethos of Sugarloaf. I look at Geppetto's and, the mountain, the people that ran those businesses, they were misfits. They were sort of, think Tiger and, and guys at the bag and, Lloyd and Tiger at Geppetto's. They worked Booth Bay in the summer. They worked Sugarloaf in the winter. Yeah. They just hung around long enough and became
that's right.
Successful.
That's right. So what I'm hearing you say is that there's still opportunity in Maine. The ship hasn't left.
No.
And, I've said this before, which is, what? You've got to get off the sideline and get in the game.
Yeah.
I've got a client who's looking, Falmouth area, and we've been showing them everything, and their budget's, let's just say it's $1 million, but
significant budget.
But now that neighborhood is 1-2, and
Challenge.
I'm like,
yep.
In a 2-year period, I'm like, you wait any longer, you're not going to be able to afford this neighborhood any longer.
Yeah, and in 2019, it was probably $750 at 4%.
Right.
So yes, I feel bad for those people, and trust me, I have many clients that I've taken around for years, and eventually they may buy, but not always. Mm-hmm. And you're not in the game until you're in the game.
Right.
And I don't know where values are going in the future, but if you hold real estate long enough, the average is 3 to 4% appreciation over the, since they've been tracking it since the late 40s. Mm-hmm. So you can't bank on 5, 10, 15% appreciation. So just buy and hold.
Right.
And it's one step. When you're ready, try another step.
Mm-hmm.
If your life needs change, do something else.
Right.
And what's the worst can happen? You sell this and you move on.
Great.
I'm happy to rent you an apartment because you're paying my mortgage.
Yeah, right? So, Dave, tell people where they can find you.
MarsdenRealEstate.com. David Marsden. I run my own small team. I have 2 people that work with me, Laura and Jill, awesome ladies. Can't do this alone. And we're just a simple, hardworking group. So
Social media?
Social media, marsdenrealestate.com. I run a sort of side social media as my own personal stuff, marsdenadventures.com, or just Marsden Adventures on Instagram. But I don't post a lot, but there's all kinds of stuff behind the scenes, and we're out there every day, and we're trying to have fun and work with like-minded people, and love to an introduction and go out for a day on the water or on the hill.
Yeah. So guys, I can't thank David enough. He's a wealth of information. Reach out to him, find him on social media, like him, subscribe to his channel. It helps us out, helps him out. So if you have any questions, reach out 207-553-2400 or reach out to David. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yeah.